In order to meet the demands of population growth and business development, North York was constantly changing after the Second World War. In the last 3 decades of the 20th century, North York was revamped and went from a sleepy Toronto suburb to a downtown uptown. It was labeled the City with a Heart by Mayor Mel Lastman at the time. In the process of urban transformation, old buildings are inevitably demolished. The Willow Theatre at the time was one of them. Fortunately, there are still people who attempt to preserve and reproduce history in their own way, allowing us to relive the past time. This photo is a print of the Willow movie theater created by Mr. Dowson in 1982. The Willow is the first movie theater in North York. It was built in 1947, opened on June 18, 1948, and closed in 1987. During its 40 years, the Willow movie theater brought endless joy to the people after the war. Most of the photos of the Willow are in black and white. There are also some rare color photos, but they don't show the whole movie theater clearly. Coming to Mr. Dowson's print, it shows us the Willow's image in a complete, clear, and vivid manner. When we talk about the Willow, North York's first movie theater, the name Charles Dowson is always connected to it. I've seen people talking about Mr. Dowson and his prints on many online forums about the Willow. They express love for Mr. Dowson and his numerous artworks. Today, we are delighted to have an opportunity to interview Mr. Dowson on behalf of the Historical Society. Mr. Dowson, I'm absolutely delighted to be interviewing you on behalf of the North York Historical Society. I've been in some online forums about the Willow, and I've seen people talking about you and your prints. People express their love for you and your numerous artworks. Our first question is, why did you choose to include the Willow in your Willowdale art collection?
Well, I had found out through the news back in the late 70s, probably 1980, 81, that North York, that where I was living in Willowdale, was going to be revamped. In other words, a lot of the old buildings were going to be torn down and replaced with new structures. And so I thought, well, I should go around and photograph whatever it is that I could photograph that I knew was not going to exist. And that's what got me started. So I photographed Dempsey's, the old Orange Bowl restaurant south of Shepherd on Yonge. And I did the post office. I also took photos of the old police station, the fire hall, Willow, just to name a few to start with. And I thought I was experienced in serigraph or silkscreen printing, and there was a method using dots on plastic to make a plate and then print it and then hand color them. And some of the colors were printed in, like, for example, on the Willow, I printed in the marquee, and I printed in the sky to save a lot of time. Gibson House was another one. It wasn't going to be torn down, but I wanted to include it. So that's what got me started. And I found an old photo of the Willow Theater from, I guess, 59 or 60 that also included Stevenson's gas station. So that was the first Willow. Then the second Willow Theater was from straight across the street, photos that I had already taken. And in order to make it a clean print, I removed the power lines and the power poles so that you could see the whole scene without any interference from power lines. And I just went from there, and I made sure that whatever the cost was to produce one print was covered so that I could use that money to produce the next one. And then it just snowballed from there. I had a couple of art shows at the house at where I was living at 68 Parkview. And I also included Ming's Variety Store that I mentioned to you. There's a photo of me and Mr. Wong. His name was Wong. When he took over the store, it was called Ming's, so he just left the name on it. So, of course, everyone called him Mr. Ming. And I included that one as well. So it just went from there because I wanted to preserve the images. Now, I didn't get to do everything. And I found somebody found me. It was a friend of the family who was interested in what I was doing and the old photos. And I didn't want the old photos, the negatives, to be lost. So I just gave them to him I told him to preserve those negatives and prints for future generations so that they would be able to see those. That's basically how I got started in the project. And of course, the Willow was a big hit because it's the Willow Theater and practically everybody went there.
Thank you for your hard work on preserving the image of the historical architecture. Mr. Dowson, some people said that your print was hung in the Willow.
I don't remember clearly seeing them hanging in there at the time. They may have been, and they may have been hanging there on the last Willow show or the last picture show that was advertised and I forget which movies were shown. That it was a double bill, and two movies were shown, and then of course everybody crowded into the lobby and into around the candy stand and shaking hands. And I guess the Allen family were there, but I don't distinctly remember the prints hanging in there. They may have been. I mean, I don't see why not, at the time, to have them hanging up to celebrate the theater. Yeah, that would have been nice to remember seeing them.
Fans of your work remember everything related to your works. Mr. Dowson, I am interested in what motivates you to become an artist.
It was always there. There's a picture of me that my mother took of me in kindergarten with a smock on and big paintbrush, painting on a big piece of newsprint, looking at the camera. It was always there. It was always there. And then through public school and then into junior high school, I met up with other students who were artistically inclined, and it would come to the forefront and then it would go to the back. Then I took up amateur photography as well, and then I took up the video camera. So being an artist or being artistic was always there. It was always a bent that I had. So when the opportunity came to create something that I was interested in, I always found a way to do it. I'm an intuitive artist, and you want to accomplish something, you intuitively figure out how it is that you want to accomplish it, what kind of whatever techniques, colors, medium, etc., etc. So it was always there.
Art has accompanied you ever since your childhood. Mr. Dowson, I saw your sister's responses to questions about your artwork on various online forums. I can feel that she is really proud of you. Could you talk about the family you grew up in?
My mother's side of the family, Parkers, are from the U.S. and came up, I believe, in 1789. My mother's side of the family were United Empire Loyalists. My father's side of the family, the Dowsons, came over in 1867 since Confederation. And our Dowson family goes back to Yorkshire, England. And my father researched the name Dowson, and he found that it came from the name Sons of the Doves, which was a religious order of monks. And so Sons of the Dove translated or was changed later into Dovesons or Dowsons. So Yorkshire was basically where our family originated, if you'd like. But we came over in 1867, just as the country was getting underway. I was born March 1st, 1950 at Grace Hospital at Church and Bloor. And I have Bill Dowson was the oldest, born in 1929 or 1930. Then there was brother John in 1935. Then there was sister Mary, I think 1940, and brother Richard in 1942, and until 1948, when brother Michael was born. And then I was born in 1950, and I had a sister, younger sister, Ruth Ann, and she was born in 1952. All in a two-bedroom bungalow. The dining room was changed into a bedroom, and of course, only one bathroom. So it was a busy place. And for roughly, say from up until 1955, over a period of 2 years or maybe 3 years, everybody was living in the house at that time. So there was 9 people living in that little bungalow on Parkview. And then, of course, the kids, the older boys grew up and moved out, and Sister Mary got married, moved out. And we stayed the whole time. My parents stayed the whole time from 1929 when they built it until finally my mother passed away in 1991.
Oh, it's so nice to know that you used to also be a resident of Willowdale. Could you share with us some memories of when you lived in Willowdale?
Well, interesting things in my childhood were the number of kids in our close-knit neighborhood. That was the most interesting part. It was just always busy with activity. The McKee Avenue Public School, and then, of course, going to all the movies, and then the Friday night teen dance back at Bayview. They had a teen club, and it was supervised by teachers. I was in Air Cadets, 246 Division Air Cadets, 246 Squadron, Royal Canadian Air Cadets for 2 years, and that was great. I did some acting as I grew up. I did Doctor in the House. I played Simon in 1980 with my brother John. We were on the crew with the Newmarket Theatre Group. And we also did, funny thing happened on the way to the Forum. And we also did Cabaret. And all 3 times we had the full house, 500 plus people in the theater. And that was a great experience. That was great. Take the bus up, memorize the lines, and work it out. Cicely Thompson, R.H. Thompson's mother, was the director. And she was great. She was really great. That was a lot of fun doing the theater. In 1966, Larry Metcalf and I ran away from home when we were 16. We planned it all out. Got the train ticket, the bags and everything, got out of the house, made our way to the train station with a buddy of mine, and took the train out to Edmonton and stayed with my oldest brother. Of course, by the time Kenny Metcalf, Larry's brother, gave his parents and my parents the note, we were well on our way. And of course, they knew where we were going. It was obvious. And we stayed out there for 5 to 6 weeks. And then he he came back. We came back. He worked at Connaught Labs, and I worked at Simpsons for the Christmas season, and then I worked at Eaton's until May of '66. And then we just kicked around for the summer, and then went back to school in the fall. So a lot of kids at that time took grade 10. They did grade 10, and then they quit for a year. It was kind of a trend. They'd had enough. 10 years of school. They needed a break. It was kind of a trend. You take a year off, make money, get your yah-yahs out, as we used to say, and then go back to school. So, and it really was good therapy, because when you went back to school, you were back into it again. It was like a fresh start.
We also interviewed Mr. Dowson's brother, John Dowson, and Mr. Dowson's nephew, Rick Harris, to provide us more information about Charles Dowson.
Mr. Dowson, thank you for accepting our interview. Could you talk about your memories about Charles Dowson's school years?
He was always into drawing as well. And he ended up going to art school at I forget the name of the school in Toronto, and that's where he graduated high school from, and he got his paintings. More connected later on when he was I had a paper route, a Globe and Mail paper route, and when I left the paper route, my younger brother Michael took it over, and the bicycle. And then he turned it over to Charles. So the Globe and Mail paper route was pretty well. Charles ended up taking it and adding on. He had a couple of hundred papers to deliver using the Dowson bicycle, and he would come home and start painting. And one time, one of the customers said to him, "Are you retired?" He says, "No, I'm only 24 years old. I'm not retired." And he would spend time doing his drawings, and then in the afternoon he would do the Toronto Star paper route. So that's the kind of things I remember with Charles there.
Mr. Dowson, are there any accomplishments that you are particularly proud of your brother achieving?
Yes, as I mentioned, I had moved away from home, and I was still living in Willowdale. I had a room with a friend of mine, and I'd be often going home to visit my mom and saying hi. And what really got me about that was that these paintings that Charles would do, and I had no idea that he had that kind of talent. His painting was more like almost a physical, digital type of painting. He would paint with dots and then hand color them. It was amazing, and that was what really got me interested. And since I had been in insurance sales, I said to Charles, I want to have and he would turn these into prints. He would make his own prints and sign them. And I said, well, I want print number 1 and any 2 new paintings you have, and I'll teach you how to sell. So I taught him how to sell the paintings, and I got what they called the AP1, which was the artist print number 1 on any new paintings that he had. And I was in a client's home one day in Willowdale, talking to him about insurance, and there hanging on the wall over the fireplace was a Charles Dowson painting of the Willow Theater. And I said, well, that's my brother. No, can't be. Yeah, it's my brother, Charles. And then I also was in Toronto working in an insurance company, and I was doing audio-visual presentations for the sales staff, and we used to use stock music. and I'd go to this place called the Music People, and you'd sit there and listen to music. And in that little studio, he had paintings, the actual original paintings. And I told him about my brother, that he was doing these streetcar scenes in Toronto in front of some famous building. So he got interested in that, and I introduced him to Charles, and he said, "I don't care what it is. Every painting, every painting you do, I want to buy one. That's it." And he hung them in the studio where people would be sitting listening to music to buy. And the people who came in at that time was we call Toronto was like Hollywood North, and there's a lot of people would be sitting there looking at these paintings, interested, and asked where they got them from. And some of them bought them and took them back to Hollywood, so in Los Angeles. So he's, I guess, well known down there as well.
Mr. Harris, what is your uncle like when he is with you?
Yeah, we used to call him Uncle Chatty because we couldn't say Charlie, but he was really active in our childhood, and we would go down and visit. And because he was still living at home, we'd spend a great deal of time with him, playing in the backyard, doing all kinds of stuff. But he's the first one that really got me involved in discussing worldly matters. He was always very cerebral, the first movie that I ever remember was going with Chuck. He took me to a movie, but he was just a little bit funny. He was funny. He always did crazy voices. He very, very active as an uncle, and nothing against his brothers, but I mean he is my favorite uncle because he spent so much time with us growing up, and he was a great guy for sure.
Thank you.
Mr. Dowson, fans of your art hope to know if you are still creating prints?
As I moved closer to retirement and I was busy with driving bus for the TTC, there was really no time to start any new projects. There just wasn't the time. I have some old stock, black and white, non-colored stock on hand, but I'm not currently doing any printing. The artwork that I'm doing right now is when my granddaughter comes over, she loves to do art. She wants to be an artist. And so every time she comes over, we'll do some abstract art and exchange it with each other. But I don't have time right now to hand color prints. I might sit down from time to time and do a little still life, pencil or pencil color still life. But then I like to do 5x7 abstracts where you put the paint down and scrape it off, those kind of abstracts as well. But I've got a ton load of color slides, color photos, black and white, some really nice black and white photos that I've done over the years. But unfortunately, when you scan, as each year goes on, you're losing 1% of the detail. So if any of those were to be reissued, they'd have to be rescanned. And then that's a chore because you got to go and find them. But yeah, that's all I'm up to right now as far as artwork goes.
Mr. Dowson, fans of your art are very interested in your current life. What does a normal day in your life look like now?
Very simple lifestyle. We got to have a wonderful backyard garden. My wife did it all. The best garden we've ever had. Fruits and vegetables. It's up at 6. Downstairs at 7:30, breakfast, open up the main floor, and then check the basic news feeds and whatever chores need to be done around here. Basically, house chores. I'm the house boy, sweeping, mopping, cleaning, keeping the stove clean. Helping to prep for meals when the time comes. Of course, there's only the two of us. Not a lot of social activity. Any social activity is with the grandkids, with the 2 grandkids. Keeps you busy. Try to get Try to take rest about 9:30. Get up at 6, sometimes 5:30. I like to get an early start to the day. That goes back to my bus driving days.
This documentary will be seen by a lot of people when it's published. What do you have to say to people in your generation and as well as younger generations?
Generally, I would say live life to the fullest, not recklessly, but live it to the fullest, and do your honest best, and just keep going. Just keep going. When you fall down, you get up. You screw up, you do what you can to fix it, and then you just keep going. There is no loss. There's only learning. One way or the other, you're going to learn something from it. And any baggage you have that's holding you down or interfering with your life now, that's baggage. That's history. That should be just put out by the curb for the garbage man to take. You can't carry your past with you. You have to keep going. Otherwise you're going to miss what's going on now. We get, especially with what's going on worldwide right now, you can't do anything about any of that stuff. Just concentrate on your own circle of family and friends. And even if it's just you, concentrate on that and do your best. That's all you can do, is do your best. Nobody can ask you to do anything more than that. And express yourself, because everybody can express themselves through music, any type of music, even if it's just a harmonica, all types of two-dimensional art, three-dimensional art, physical activity, bicycle riding, challenging yourself, whatever, and keep reading. They don't read enough. I learned to read and be attracted to reading from my mother. My mother was a prolific reader. She'd go through 5 or 6 books a week. If she didn't have anything to read, she'd get antsy. So we had to take her regularly over to the North York Public Library to get some books. And so read. The young people don't read. Put down the tablet and get up a book. It's the only way you're going to learn anything for reading, because when it's on a tablet, the power goes out. You can't read anymore. That's nonsense. Learn from reading. You learn from reading, and you learn from those who already know. You learn from those people who already know. Yeah, that's just keep going. God told Moses when he was at the edge of the Red Sea, and the Pharaoh and his troops were coming up on their behinds, they started to pray. And basically God said, "What are you doing? Get your people moving." So just keep moving. Don't stop. Keep moving. Oh yeah, that's just, but read, please. Read. Doesn't matter what it is. Read. History is the best source. And write. You don't have to share it with anybody. Just write for yourself. Poetry for yourself. Sketches, artwork, sculptures. Just do it for yourself, just for your own satisfaction. And keep laughing. People don't laugh enough, especially nowadays. With all the news feeds, the good, bad, and the ugly news feeds, it's just filled with fear. Fear that you can't do anything about. So just cancel it and get into some comedy, or even if you had to, read comic books from the 50s and 60s, so you can get a few laughs in there. Oh yeah. I think that's just basic general advice that everybody can use.
Lastly, Mr. Dowson, where can people go to see your artwork?
Some people have my artwork on Facebook, but they're not very good photos. They're taken on an angle, or There's reflections from the glass. The last place that I remember my artwork being displayed was Kane's Funeral Home at Young and Steele's. Now, Mr. Kane, I'm not sure which generation, but he was the head honcho, got in touch with me, found out what I was doing, came to my house and ordered a whole set of prints. I made sure they were done extra nice. And he paid me the going price, had them all framed up, acid-free matting, and had them up in the funeral home for people to see. And some people that I know were at the funeral home to visit or celebrate the life of somebody who had passed, and they saw my prints. Now, apparently that building was sold and they moved further north. So you'd have to look up Kane's Funeral Home, Kanes, and ask them to try and find out what happened to the framed artwork that I did for them. It was, I believe, 2 Willow Theatre prints, the Fire Hall, Ming's, Variety Store, Dempsey's, and I'm not sure about any others, but that's the best place I know to go, unless somebody wants to, some people want to get together and re-photograph properly with a good phone with no reflections and post them on Facebook on a particular site. Then people would get a chance to see them. I still have on file a Toronto Maple Leaf building, Toronto, where the Maple Leaf Gardens, where the Toronto Maple Leafs used to play, and I wanted to do a commemorative piece, 60 years, so I photographed the building from as many faraway angles as I could, put the photos together, made a drawing, and then it took 2 years to make the plastic plate with the ink dot system. And it's very large. It's 3 feet by, well, I'll just say 3 feet by 3 feet. And I printed the tone of the brick. I printed the sky. I printed the marquee, and then I hand colored the rest, and it was a limited edition of 60. And I sold, I think it was 105 in the edition. I'm pretty sure I sold 80. I sold 80 of them. And then I thought maybe I'd bring it back to finish off selling. So I had it professionally photographed by Digital Treasures. They did a great job. And they made the big plate or the big photo. It's a super high def photo somewhere in my file. And they did a watermark one for me with my name across it. And I put it up on Facebook, and that's still up there.
It is a special honor to interview Mr. Dowson. Thank you for using your artwork to preserve the look of North York City's important historical architecture. Nearly half a century after the Willow was demolished, we can still see what it looks like. Mr. Dowson's prints reproduces history and awakens people's wonderful memories of the old times. Thank you, Mr. Dowson, for all that you have done, and thank you for watching.